Occam's razor. Entities must not be multiplied beyond necessity. The simplest explanation is usually the best one. This is a story of two individuals who, just like in most stories, crossed paths at one point, except in this case they never met, never seen, never heard, never even knew who each other was. Yet one of the things that merges their life together is one of the most shameless smokescreens the country of Mexico has seen in a long time. Paulette Farah was born on Wednesday, July 20th, 2005, at Huixquilucan de Degollado, Mexico. She was born prematurely, causing a brain hemorrhage that left Paulette with a motor deficiency that prevented her from walking properly and a speech impediment. Fortunately for her, that does not cause any cognitive issues, and her family had the resources to help her grow into a healthy kid. Paulette was a beloved student at the Cricri kindergarten. School principal Ms. Carmen Valles describes Paulette as an enthusiastic little girl who made the greatest effort to carry out her activities by herself and who only had to be assisted due to her motor and language disabilities in some daily actions. Her nickname at school was also Po, as this was how Paulette was able to say her name and introduce herself due to her speech impediment. Taking care of a young girl with these type of disabilities can be an expensive and lengthy process, and so the family had two housemates living with them, Erika and Marta Casimiro. On March 21st, 2010, after spending the day with their dad Mauricio, he texts Paulette and Lisette, Paulette's older sister, back to their apartment, where Lisette Farah, the mother of both, is also getting home from celebrating a friend's birthday, Amanda de la Rosa, the night before. Erika and Marta take Paulette and her sister to bed, as they have school the following morning. Erika and Marta were highly skilled at their jobs, and due to their extended time with the family, they both come to love Paulette and Lisette, her older sister, as if they were children of their own. This will be the last night Paulette will be seen alive. March 22nd, 2010. Erika and Marta go to Paulette's bedroom to wake her up and get her ready for school. To their surprise, Paulette was nowhere to be seen, so they approached her dad Mauricio regarding this, as he was just getting home from an early workout. The dad told him to ask her mother, as he hadn't been home for the past couple hours, but after these two individuals who have been desperately looking all around the house approached her mom, her only response was, "What do you mean she's not in the house? She must be. Look for her around her toys or something," as she was busy with her computer. The same computer she kept using for at least a couple hours, as the housemates were desperately looking for her 4-year-old daughter. At that point, Mauricio began making calls to family members to help them check if any of them knew about Paulette's whereabouts. No response. Around 4 hours after the initial disappearance, Mauricio Gebara's sister found out about Paulette's missing, and she immediately took part in reporting this to the police, as no one had done so at this point. Once the police arrived, they determined that there were no signs of a break-in and that the only point of access to Paulette's bedroom, which was on the second floor, was a window that was still sealed. Nonetheless, the case was labeled as a kidnapping. The apartment building had no recordings of what could have happened the night before, since they had cameras and security guards to monitor the building, but these security cameras had no recording features, and the guards had no recollection of anything weird or unusual happening that night. K9 units were brought into Paulette's bedroom and apartment. They removed the bed sheets to track her scent, and even ran through all the other apartments in the building. Still, no results. March 24th, 2010. A countrywide campaign to find Paulette is launched. The investigation was headed by none other than the Attorney of Justice from Mexico State, Alberto Basbas, and the individual next in line, Alfredo Castillo. A lot of efforts and resources were put in Mexico State itself, but nonetheless, if you live anywhere in Mexico around this time, you might remember your local news TV station talking about this case. Certainly, every Televisa news channel was talking about this particular case for what seemed to be 24/7. Paulette's family was a wealthy one. In fact, the specific area where they lived is known as Interlomas, one of the most private and expensive areas in Mexico State and across the country. Paulette's parents, Lisette and Mauricio, were tightly connected to a high-rank government official from the PRI political party. More specifically, her dad, Mauricio, as the grandfather of Paulette, was a close friend of the previous Mexico State governor, Arturo Montiel Rojas. Additionally, Mauricio's sister was very close to the lover of the mayor of the city of Huixquilucan, Alfredo del Mazo, which inevitably led to an unhuman amount of efforts and pressure to solve this case at the time, whatever means necessary. There's also the relationship between Alfredo del Mazo and Enrique Peña Nieto, Mexico's state governor at the time, as these two are third cousins and their family members have always maintained a tight relationship. Enrique Peña Nieto was also going to a critical moment of his career, as he was reaching the end of his term and was planning for the future. Enrique Peña Nieto would also be Mexico's next president only a few years later. This is important down the line of events. 2010 was an important year, but not for a good reason. To fully understand this, we again need to look back in time. 1st of December, year 2000. President Vicente Fox Quesada was elected the 62nd president of Mexico. Vicente Fox Quesada was part of the Partido Acción Nacional, a political party that, although it had been created since 1939, had never been able to beat the Partido Revolucionario Institucional, or PRI, at the federal elections. This meant that the PRI had been in power for 71 years straight ever since Mexico became a democratic country. A lot can be said about Vicente Fox's presidency. Barely anything is good or remarkable for the Mexican people. But after dealing with the worst economic crisis the country had ever seen at the hand of back-to-back PRI presidents, Carlos Salinas de Gortari and Ernesto Zedillo, the people were tired. Change was needed. His presidency went on from the year 2000 to 2006. Vicente Fox's 6-year term goes by. A lot of mistakes are made. A lot of nepotism, derailment of funds, corruption. Yet, the country did not sink to the bottom as it happened before. The Mexican people decided to give another PAN president another chance. After all, what's the worst that could happen? 1st of December of 2006. Felipe Calderón Hinojosa is elected the 63rd president of Mexico, a historical defeat of the PRI as it was the second consecutive PAN presidential term, making it the longest presidential run where the PRI was not in power. 11th of December of 2006. President Felipe Calderón launched the Operativo Conjunto Michoacán, a declaration of war against the narco on a countrywide scale, starting one of the most brutal internal conflicts in modern history. 6,500 members of the Mexican military are sent to Michoacán to detain several heads of the Cartel de Sinaloa, Los Zetas, and some other active or associated in the area. To this day, the Mexican government keeps the records of the results of said operations sealed, and although some information is out there, the full extent is not known. This is now known as La Guerra contra el Narco, and it has not stopped ever since. Costing around 440,106 lives since 2006, averaging around 2,037 deaths per month, every single month over the past 18 years. This number has been on a steady increase ever since January 2007, only a month after President Felipe Calderón was elected. 2007. 8,867 fatalities. 2008. 14,006 fatalities. 2009. 19,803 fatalities. 2010. 25,757. 2011. 27,213. 2012. 25,967 fatalities. Mexican journal Excelsior reports that in addition to these high number of deaths, it is estimated that there are also 100,000 kidnappings. Towards the end of his presidential term, Felipe Calderón will leave with over 120,000 fatalities behind him, a trend that did not stop growing over the following 2 presidential terms. It would seem that the bet the Mexican people took on a different type of leadership backfired, and horribly so. 2010 was an important year, but not for a good reason. 2010 was at the time known for being the bloodiest, most dangerous year in Mexico's history to date for 4 consecutive years in a row. Your average coverage in the news would have a weekly, or in worst cases, a daily section of the number of casualties across your city and across the country. This led to the popularity and acceptance of Felipe Calderón and the PAN overall to decrease considerably year after year, and the PRI political party was highly aware of this. As a result, Televisa launched a countrywide campaign for the then governor of Mexico State, Enrique Peña Nieto. Whatever Televisa could get their hands on to embellish the image of this individual, they would do so. It was later revealed that Televisa and PRI had literal contracts establishing the type of ultra-aggressive campaign they were going to run for this candidate, while at the same time slandering all the other candidates. This is the story of 2 individuals. A daughter who went missing and appeared dead at the foot of her bed just 9 days later, and a state leader who was so eager to run for president that this led to many different horrible controversies and efforts to try and dissuade the people from paying attention to the incompetence of his leadership and the incredibly tangled web of corruptions that surrounded him. What we now call a smokescreen. Sadly, Paulette's disappearance was one of them. Although Enrique Peña Nieto's government was not shown to be involved in any way, they are heavily accused of moving Televisa to push this story all across Mexico 24/7. On average, 17 to 22 children go missing in Mexico every single day, which then begs the question on everyone's mind, what made this case so special? Why would every single national broadcast dedicate several segments a day to this case? This thought process was also not strange to the Mexican people, as smokescreens have been used at several impactful events and moments across Mexico's history. March 25th, 2010. Lisette, Paulette's mother, begins giving interviews about her daughter's case in her daughter's bedroom. You can find these and pretty much any and all interviews that were done for this case online. A lot of these became especially crude and famous due to the way Lisette talks about her daughter's case, the way she laughs nonchalantly, makes jokes, reacts to questions as if these made her cry but to no signs of tears or any kind of physical effect on her face, and even asking for an opportunity to rehearsal prior to recording an actual interview. At first, I thought she might have fallen in the pool, but she wasn't there. Then I thought she might have fallen down a ravine, but she wasn't there. I mean, Harry Potter or what? Well, even if I lose Paulette, I still have another daughter. For a point of reference, this very closely resembles the attitudes, mannerisms, and flat effect shown by Casey Anthony during her daughter's case. March 29, 2010. Mexican officials now legally take the parents and housemates in for interrogation, and they consequently have them held by the police at a hotel until April 3rd. None of them are allowed to give any interviews. They are now the main suspects of the disappearance of their daughter, as their stories have shown multiple inconsistencies and contradictions. During these interviews, both parents present themselves nervous, hyper alert, and in a defensive state. More specifically, the mother of Paulette, Paulette Farah, shows a cold demeanor and a lack of empathy and care for the situation, raising eyebrows amongst officials. At a certain point of the interrogation, Paulette's mom starts accusing Mauricio, her dad, of being responsible for her disappearance. And after confronting him with this, Mauricio responds with, "Yes, I know where Paulette is, and I will only tell you if you help me so I don't have any problems with the law. I am afraid of going to jail." What comes after this is very blurry and it's not very clear. The parents are placed in separate rooms at the hotel due to their recent declarations, and from all the sources of information I could gather, this is a rough timeline of the following days. March 30th, 2010, midnight. At this point of the investigation, the forensic and police teams had already done research inside the residency 4 times, all of them to no results whatsoever. Due to the recent declarations given by the parents and their ability to now do a 5th investigation with no one inside the apartment, a forensic agent by the name of Jorge González Rojas, an individual who at the time held the civil engineer degree, goes into Paulette's bedroom. It is worth noting here that prior to the actual discovery of the body, the electricity of the entire building goes off, completely taking away any possible camera surveillance and stopping everything for a considerable lapse of time. After the electricity comes back, Jorge González Rojas walks into Paulette's bedroom when he suddenly detects a weird smell of humidity coming from underneath the bed. At this point, he decides to take the bedsheets off and move the mattress, only to discover little Paulette's body lying in a 15 by 44 centimeter small gap between the mattress and the frame of the bed. Right after this, and I mention this because it is important as it was registered in the official declarations, the forensic agent that discovers Paulette immediately goes to the restroom to throw up due to the shock and the body already being in a considerable state of decomposition. What you're watching right now is the official video released by the authorities to the public of the so-called exact moment when Paulette was found. This video has been heavily criticized as yet another piece of tamper evidence, where none of what was previously mentioned happens. There are no individuals walking anywhere near the camera lens as if it was not just the site of an investigation, and one of the agents even alludes to the fact that Paulette's body shows severe signs of physical violence. when the official record eventually claimed none, and not so long after calling the cause of death mechanical asphyxiation due to suffocation by the Attorney of Justice Alberto Vaz. This would mean that at the time authorities recognized that Paulette was in fact murdered by someone. This cause of death would not last long. Paulette is shown to be tightly tucked under all the bed sheets of her bed, effectively wrapping her at the foot of the bed. Same bed that the housemates did the night prior to Paulette's disappearance. Same bed where other family members and Amanda de la Rosa slept on top of for 4 days straight prior to finding Paulette. Same days that the housemates did the bed over and over again, in a process they explained during multiple interviews in which they explained how lifting the mattress and removing the bedsheets entirely and then tucking them under the bed was part of the process. Same bedsheets that even just a couple nights prior has shown no signs of bodily fluids or stains. Same bed Paulette's mom gave several interviews on top of prior to being found. Same bed and bedroom where around 200 individuals have been looking for her during 9 days, amongst them housemates, police officials, forensic agents, canine units, family members, and more. April 3rd, 2010. Mauricio, Lisette, Erika, and Marta are released from the hotel they were being held at but are ordered to stay within the country. At the same time, Mexico State Governor Enrique Peña Nieto gave the order to the Attorney of Justice Alberto Vaz to stop giving interviews and stop talking publicly about the case, which he does. Eventually, after the investigation was beginning to wrap up, Alberto Vaz changed the cause of death and classified it as an accident on the 21st of May of 2010, changing the entire narrative of the occurrence and having no one detained even when a confession was given on record, and quitting his position just 3 days later. This individual, Alberto Vaz, was later given the role of head of the Financial Intelligence Department, basically the IRS for Mexico, by the now President of Mexico, Enrique Peña Nieto, back in 2013. Alberto Vaz's role was also filled immediately by Alberto Castillo after him quitting. It must be said that there are allegations that during the 4 initial investigations of the crime scene prior to finding Paulette, Alberto Castillo would not allow anyone to go into Paulette's bedroom for some reason. Also, that he had a subordinate by the name of Olincer Castillo Garcia. This would be the individual who originally took the bedsheet that very first day of the investigation, but nobody ever saw or was able to use the bedsheet for anything after that, effectively disappearing. This is the bedsheet in which, by this logic, Paulette was laying on top of while being stuck at the foot of her bed. Same bedsheet that was only later seen in a video where Paulette is found 9 days later. The context that surrounds both the empire that Televisa and the PRI have created and the disappearance of Paulette are so incredibly dense that it will be impossible for me to get in detail about these two tales without making several hour-long videos. In the case of Paulette, there were so many inconsistencies, contradictions, corruption, tampering with evidence, and outright lies coming from both of the parents that it's almost unanimously accepted that the official telling of events is almost entirely unreliable. I skipped over several of these items. Some of them because since this case was and still is so popular, it is hard to find reputable sources. And in the case of the relationship between Televisa and the PRI, the smokescreens they've been responsible for and the amount of influence they have over each other extends for over 60 years. To put it bluntly, every single video that I'm planning on making that has any relation to the PRI is involved with Televisa in one way or another. If you're interested in learning more about these two subjects, I invite you to watch or read the following media. Ever since 2015, Mexico's number of fatalities has never dropped below 19,000, and it has not dropped below 32,000 ever since 2017. Enrique Peña Nieto would end his 6-year term with over 150,000 fatalities, and what is now recognized as one of the worst and most corrupt and media-staged presidential terms in Mexico's history. The number of stories surrounding this president alone will be too many to tell in this video, and the majority of them are worth putting out there to the world. The official explanation for the cause of Paulette's death given by Mexican authorities was the following. Paulette got ready for bed and tucked in her bed the night of March 21st. At some point during the night, this 4-year-old is able to crawl under her bed sheets and perfectly place herself horizontally at the foot of her bed, by moving a 60-kilogram bed 15 centimeters up, all on her own while laying horizontally and having little to no room for movements. The housemates failed to find her the following morning. Then the parents' families failed to find her as well, as did over 200 individuals composed of police, forensic, and K-9 units after thoroughly searching her bedroom. The family members and friends that slept under those same bed sheets all the way up until 2 days before finding her, as well as her mother and the news showing up for interviews on top of that same bed, did not notice anything unusual, smell anything, or even felt anything for that matter. Then the nannies again failed to notice her somehow when doing the bed for at least 4 out of those 9 days and tucking the bedsheets literally under her decaying body every single day. Only to, after an investigation that led to a confession yet not guilty parties, another search is done, and Paulette is now found no more than a meter away from where she was the last time that she was seen, officially making the whole event just an accident. Or Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually the best one.